3 reasons you should never use a lockbox in the city of Detroit. Number 1, it is an open invitation to somebody walking by that sees the lockbox that thinks, what's in that house that I should steal? Like maybe the furnace and the hot water heater. That's a thing in Detroit. They steal those. Or maybe the new kitchen cabinets that just went in. So don't use the lockbox for that. Number 2, a fake landlord can see that and go, keys to a house that's got electricity and a furnace and a kitchen? I shall rent that house. And they do. They rent it to somebody, and stay tuned and I'll tell you how it goes in the Detroit courts getting rid of such person. Reason number 3 is you really need to be present when you show a house to a potential tenant, especially today. And let me tell you why I'm saying especially today. I'll get into that when I get to the third thing. So my husband and I have been buying houses in Detroit since 2007. We built up our own portfolio. In 2015, my husband said it's so much more fun renovating houses than being in floor covering. So we decided to go full time into just flipping houses to investors, and we started a property management company. And let me tell you, the profit margins are pretty slim with a property management company, especially when you have the motto like we do of do unto other investors as we would have done unto us. We treated every property like it was our own investment, and it made it really tough to make a good profit. And so we sold that company. And then since then, I have learned how other property managers cut corners. And one of the things that they do is they use lock boxes, and they should not be using lock boxes, but I get why they do, because it takes a lot of manpower to not use a lockbox. And so I did come up with a solution, and because, what are you going to do? You need a property manager, right? But I am here to tell you, no, you do not. You need my online course that I wrote, and it teaches you all the things you need to know in Detroit. And if you want more information about it, there's a link below to my Calendly app, and I'm happy to talk to you about my course and what it teaches. But let's get into it. So number 1, I kind of already went over that. We know that there's a furnace problem in Detroit. In my course, I go into how we handle these problems. So what most property managers will do is tell you, just take the furnace out. And they charge you a good amount of money to take the furnace out, put the furnace back in when it's between tenants or when you just bought the house or something. And it seems to make sense, but let's say it's between tenants and it's the dead of winter and the house needs fresh paint. How do you paint an ice cold house? Seriously? So we go into all that. How do you have a furnace, not have a furnace? How do you protect it? How do you, besides just like don't use lock boxes, we go into our own strategy because we have renovated 300 plus houses at this point. Number 2 is the fake landlords. So what they do is they break open the lockbox. It's not hard. They get the keys, they rent it out to somebody, and this poor person thinks that they're a real renter until the owner comes along and says, well, who are you? What are you doing in my house? Well, they're not technically squatters because they didn't break in. It was the scumbag who was the fake landlord with the, burner phone that did it that nobody can get a hold of anymore. And so the courts treat them like what's called a holdover tenant. And we had this situation before, and it took us, without going into the whole story, it took us a good 5 months to get this person out. And the person we bought the house with the person in it, and we offered cash for keys. Like people are like, okay, so if that happens, you offer them cash for keys. So we decided, we put into the purchase price of our house extra money because we knew that it could be a challenge to get this person out. And boy, were we right, but we didn't think it was this big of a challenge. And so we offered her $2,500 to leave, and she wouldn't leave. She wouldn't communicate. She was never home when we went there to try to work it out and talk to her. And so we finally get to the court case, and it wasn't her that showed up. It was some other woman. Mind you, I put on my court documents her name and all occupants. So it didn't matter who it was in the house. They needed to be evicted, and it was a 30-day notice. Like, no, nothing that's supposed to mean get out. I don't need to give you an excuse. And this woman showed up who was not our tenant, sobbing. Turns out the woman that was our holdover left, and she rented it to this other woman. So this other woman shows up, and I have disabled children. I didn't know. And the court said, oh, you poor thing, let's give you an extra 45 days to find a place. And we're like, that's not even legal. We could have offered her cash for keys had we known that it was some other person in there or something. I don't know. It was awful. So don't think the courts are in your favor. You can't treat them like squatters. Okay, so number 3, if you're enjoying this video, please like, subscribe, I just hit 10,000 followers. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. I'm so excited. It means so much to me. So please subscribe and get me to my next level. I don't know. The reason that you have to be there when you show houses. Detroit took forever to get all these tenants out after the moratorium. And it just now happened. They're finally all out. All these bad tenants are out. That means that there are a whole lot of rentals now. And there happen to be, right now in Detroit, more rentals than there are tenants, especially Section 8 tenants. And I love Section 8, but good luck finding a Section 8 tenant. They're the cream of the crop after the court treated all us landlords so badly. All of us just want Section 8 tenants. So if you have a house with a lockbox, you don't get to do any sales. And I know how to do sales. So when we're showing houses for rent, I am right there. And I am saying all the things that the tenants want to hear, and they actually are true. I tell them things like, this is a small company, the owner is fantastic, you're never going to be in a position where the owner won't fix it. Usually when owners don't fix things, they can't afford it. I vet all the owners. I make sure that they have resources, not to mention it's a newly renovated house, so there's not going to be any major repairs anyway. They love to hear that. And I tell them, you're not getting forwarded to the Philippines when you call. You're going to actually get a real person, and they start swooning. So it's not just the house that we're selling. It's the whole business that we're selling. It's who's going to be the person that they have to pay their biggest bill of the month to. Whether it's Section 8 or if it's a cash paying tenant, that's a big bill for people to pay every month. And they need to know that it's a good and trusting relationship, because Detroit is full of slumlords and it is full of unsavory property managers. My solution is take my course, do it yourself, have full control. Don't use the property manager to call the maintenance man. You call the maintenance man. If you can't do this yourself, you're like, oh, I have a full-time job, I can't do it myself. I get that. The course is made for you to hire your own assistant so they can do it for you and they advocate for you. You're better off paying someone each time there needs to be a visit to the house than risking one of these holdover tenants, or risking your furnace getting stolen, or risking your whole kitchen getting stolen. You're better off paying somebody each time to go physically to the house than using a lockbox. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next Saturday.